The story of Jackie Orena is one that will make you question everything you think you know about justice. Jackie's grandfather is Victor, Little Vic Orena. Victor was alleged to be the acting boss of the Colombo crime family. He is now 90 years old and still sitting in prison with 3 life sentences. But here's where it gets interesting. The prosecutor who put Victor away is the same prosecutor that unsuccessfully tried to prosecute President Trump. And the dirty, crooked tactics that he tried to use against President Trump are the same ones he used against Jackie's grandfather. That's right, same prosecutor, different defendant, different decade, but the same crooked playbook. Jackie is coming on to tell her grandfather's story to fight for his freedom. She believes the government used corruption, FBI informants, and dirty tactics to convict an innocent man. When you hear what she has to say, you're going to realize the government doesn't always tell the truth. This is a special episode. And the reason why, because we're trying to get somebody out that's 92 years old that got basically 4 life sentences. Your father, a grandfather, Vic Orena, Little Vic, Free Vic. But here's a guy that is doing time, 4 life sentences, and his health is so bad right now. His health is bad. He dementia and all that, and a wheelchair and everything else like that. And you have a corrupt prosecutor, the same corrupt prosecutor that went after Trump.
Yep, Andrew Weissmann.
And corrupt agents that put him away. And we're going to get into the corruptness just a minute. But that's what this special program is about. Getting someone freed that should be freed because a cruel and unusual punishment. Jackie, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Please give the audience who you are and where you came from and what's your endeavor now to do and your task.
My name is Jackie Orena. I'm the granddaughter of Victor Orena, who has been incarcerated for the past 34 years. I was just a little girl when he went away, so there wasn't much I could do back then or understand as far as his case goes. But as he got older and his health declined, I felt like really drawn to trying to help him in some way. I saw this man that was in no condition to be incarcerated. And I started to dig a little bit deeper into his case and started to unravel a lot of misconduct between the prosecutors, between the FBI agents that were handling the case, a lot of the informants. It just seemed that there was corruption every line leading to his conviction. So every time they said no or denied it, I dug a little bit deeper and I grew a little bit more passionate about trying to help get him out.
So, in your discoveries, what did you find? We know that the prosecutor here is extremely corrupt.
Yes. So the prosecutors in the Eastern District back then, you have to understand the way that it works. Once they get a conviction, it's like, they get to climb the ranks. It's like, a little notch on their belt and they get
a feather in their hat.
Exactly. So the way that they worked back then, it's anything that they could do possible to get a conviction. It was good for them. They didn't care about the people.
Any way they got it.
By any means necessary. And we know that from how the FBI handled their rats. We know that with the prosecutors and how they all work together. And now, unraveling some of the details, I'm really seeing how corrupt it truly is. People talk about it all the time, but not until it got to the level where it was happening to our own president do I think that people actually open their eyes that widely. So I think now is the time to speak on it, now that it's the same players. And if you look back, going back in time, history repeats itself. You could almost follow all of these corrupt agents to, the 50s. So you're going back to like 1956 when they had COINTELPRO, and this was a secret operation that the FBI did. And the FBI was blackmailing people and going after civil rights leaders. And they were, putting out fake news so that people would actually get hurt, or they would create this narrative on the street to make people act the way that they wanted to. They used the same informants. I mean, we know that Greg Scarpa, who was the rat or, top echelon informant on my grandfather's case, he was involved back then. They sent him on missions in Mississippi.
He had carte blanche to do anything.
He could do whatever he wanted.
They gave him whatever he wanted to do, murders, whatever they want. They condone that.
How about not even condoning it, but the FBI agent that was handling him provided addresses where he could find my grandfather or other people so that he could try to kill them. They called off surveillance for task enforcement so that Scarpa could go in and do a hit. We have the case of Nick Grancio that was being surveilled by task force, and the FBI actually said that they received a call from DeVecchio to clear the area. And what happened? Scarpa went in and killed somebody. And we also have some of the rats that are on podcasts now saying that they were in the car and that Greg Scarpa called his so-called girlfriend and said, we got eyes on us, make them go away. And within minutes, the cops were gone and they went in and killed somebody. So this is what they were able to do. This is
how bad the corruption
it's not just
here.
Closing your eyes, it's aiding.
They did the same thing in Boston, as we know, with John Connolly.
John Connolly trained with DeVecchio in Quantico.
There you go.
So they were in New York together. I actually went back and did some, research, and they were actually trained under Villano, who was originally handling Scarpa. And Villano was the one that handled him around the time of Joe Colombo shooting in Columbus Circle. So if you follow down the rules that the FBI, I should say the non-rules that they had and how they let, all of this stuff happen and the tactics, it's the same players, it's the same playbook, it's just different people that they targeted. So it's kind of wild.
It's almost like they're justifying their jobs so they can keep getting, more money or getting a higher
they get
position,
promotions.
A higher position, that's correct.
Yes.
So they're basically justifying their job, and they're using rats to do it, but they're letting the rats do whatever they want. There is no guidelines. They say there's guidelines, but there isn't, and it's proven already.
They're
letting these rats kill and do whatever they want and get away with it and lie. Of course, lie.
Yeah.
If you're a rat, you're a liar anyway.
Well, listen, I mean, at the end of the day, think about it this way. The prosecutors get to offer, a better plea deal or a better sentencing to somebody for giving their story, right? So now this rat goes and he's going to tell the narrative that the FBI wants so that he can walk free, right? If you or I went to a rat and said to them, hey, we're going to incentivize you, what do they call that?
I'll give you
witness tampering.
$100,000 so you don't rat.
Yeah, and that's witness tampering. And then you would go to jail. But the FBI
they can
do
offer
it.
them anything they want. And it's okay.
It's weaponization of government, and that's what we deal with. We have corrupt prosecutors. They withhold evidence so that people get convictions so that they could climb the ranks. We have people like my grandfather who should have never gotten the sentencing that he did, but they're also not giving him, a chance at a fair trial after 19 men were acquitted based on the evidence that was withheld. We also have situations where they won't.
19 men have been acquitted
based on
the same evidence that they had against your grandfather.
Basically, the Scarpa DeVecchio evidence that was withheld during my grandfather's trial came out during the next 19 trials that were on the war case. All of those men were acquitted. And the jury is quoted saying crazy things like, it's disgusting what our government does. They're the corrupt ones. They started this so-called war. They're the reason for this. And these are regular people that heard the evidence and made opinions. But when it was withheld, they were able to prosecute my grandfather.
So they withheld it against your grandfather.
Knowing this evidence, they withheld it. My grandfather got his very severe sentencing, and then that came out after, when the next trials were starting. And
that's why they were able to get off.
Yeah.
But so that means that to me, they should have went back and said, we're letting him out too then.
And we did try, and they denied it every time. And it's funny because it goes from the corruption of the prosecutors, the FBI, the rats, and even worse, the judges. You have a judge. Now, it's funny because I went and started reading all the documents on my grandfather's case. And then, of course, I started digging into other people's cases. And you see the same judge that was so adamant on my grandfather serving this crazy sentence because they're saying, the crimes that he committed, right? Now, this same judge is the judge that looked at Greg Scarpa after he killed dozens of people, okay, and said we should show compassion and humanity, and I'm only going to give him 10 years because he has AIDS. So now...
But yet your grandfather's 4 life sentences.
He's served 35.
He's 92 years old now. He has dementia. He's in a wheelchair. And when he calls home, he don't know which Jackie he's calling.
He's in chronic heart failure. He doesn't know where he is most of the time.
And he don't know which Jackie he's calling sometimes.
Exactly. He doesn't know.
And if I'm not mistaken, he actually asks you, are you coming to pick me up because I'm going home soon?
Yes.
Am I right?
You're right. So, we also, it goes in another direction too. I mean, I file for compassionate release. And, they say do not include the facts of his case within his compassionate release. Just talk about his health. Okay. So if we talk about just his health, he checks off every box, right, for a compassionate release. However, every time they deny it, they hit me with all the facts of his case. So I'm not allowed to fight the facts of his case, but you could deny him based on the facts of his case. It's a very, it's hard.
How convenient for them, huh?
Well,
they make everything convenient.
They make
for
all
them.
the rules.
They make the rules up and they say, oh no, they don't apply to you.
Yep. That's exactly how it works. So, a lot of people don't realize that. When it's very hard for me because there's not a lot of spaces I could go to speak about my grandfather. You unfortunately know about government corruption and what the rats get away with and whatever. So it's easy for me to speak to someone like you. But for most of the people out there that have read newspaper articles, they don't understand that the way the FBI works, and they were, caught doing this back in COINTELPRO. They put out fake news or they put out their narrative, right? So during my grandfather's case, there was DeVecchio, who was the corrupt agent, was feeding news media to Jerry Capici, who was writing for the Daily News. So every week he's posting a story about this war and how my grandfather wants power and all of this nonsense that wasn't real. Who's reading it? People on the street that are now believing this is going on, that now feel like there's, this situation, and they're creating the chaos. So they're inciting all of this violence, and then they want to charge my grandfather with it when he didn't know half of the stuff that was even going on.
They call guys like me, okay, in that world, criminals, crooks, this, that, whatever, thugs, but the real crooks and the real criminals are them.
They're hiding behind their badge. They're hiding
behind the badge. You're hiding behind the government laws, if you will.
Yep. Weaponization of government. They have the power and they use it. And, who's going to tell them no? They're not going to have their whole institution crumble down.
It's okay for them to do, but it ain't okay for you or I.
And that's part of the reason that I was almost, not that, when they were going after President Trump, Andrew Weissmann had all this ridiculous stuff, being posted about the president, and a lot of people that were just, they found to be, against their political views. And they went after them. And now they're starting to look at people like that. So for me, it's my hope that they're going to start to investigate, because people like that prosecutor, there was a whole big case with Enron. Then you have there's Judge Shifton actually said, someone needs to look into this guy. He withheld evidence. This is wrong. These people, and he wrote this whole thing about him. And where does that go? They hide that, but they'll make sure every negative press article is on Google. But the things they want to hide go away.
I'm going to tell you why other podcasts haven't been talking about this with you, is because they cater to rats. These other podcasts cater to rats. You know that. I know that. I don't cater to rats. There'll never be a rat on my podcast. And God forbid, if there is, he will be exposed harshly.
Yeah. Well, you know what the thing is? People don't know, right? So they think that these stories that these people are in front of a camera telling are true. They're not. So you're hearing this whole story, this guy saying, I did this and I did that. And guess what? You might as well watch some like fiction show about it, because what they're saying is not true. And a lot of times they're just reciting government narrative. I've watched 40-minute episodes where a rat is speaking about my family, and they've never been in the same room with one family member. So how do you have so much to say? Where are you getting this information? You know, that would be like me having a podcast talking about someone I completely don't know. And, you know, they need to know something. They say they heard it from this one, that one. How does that hold up on a stand? And why is it that a lot of these rats tell a story, right? And the government handpicks the information they want to use. And then now they're on a podcast saying something else and perjuring themselves, but nobody wants to bring that
Not
up.
only do they handpick what they want to use with the rat, but they tell the rat what to say.
Oh, yeah. They tell them exactly what they need.
They give them a script.
Yes.
This is what we want you to say.
Yes,
So they're going to say anything the government tells them to say,
exactly.
whether it's true or not. And most of the
Exactly.
time, it's not true.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Most of the time it isn't. And a lot of the time, like I said on my grandfather's case, there was rats that were never in the same room with him.
So the government's beautiful at this. They're beautiful at it. And people don't know this.
And they don't realize
It was exposed in Boston. It's exposed here in New York. It's the same shit, same people, same schooling, everything.
Yep, they all taught together.
They're
in
all taught
Quantico.
together.
Yep.
But the other thing is this. They're letting these rats that have multiple murders
Profit.
financially and by not going to prison.
I'm sorry, but do you know how much money it costs the government to have a rat in the witness protection program? It costs so much money. So our taxpayer dollars are now going to house these people, move them somewhere. The government gets a conviction, so they get rewarded. And now they're on podcasts when they have families of victims out there that have to hear these people bragging all the time when they killed their family members, okay? They're making money, they're selling books, they're doing shows, they're doing all this stuff. That's the biggest slap in the face. And you know what? They're not even telling the truth. So something has to be done there. And the problem is the people that do know the truth don't talk about it. So when are they going to hear the truth? You know, when are they going to hear?
I know the truth. I'm talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, listen.
I'm bringing it. I have you on here now. I'll always talk about it, and I'll continue to talk about it. And I'll always be an advocate against this, because I know that it's not right and it's wrong. Listen. I know guys like me, we're not angels, but if you're going to have laws and you're going to abide by the law, you can't have it both ways.
No.
You either got to do it one way or not do it at all. Because if you're not doing it, if you're going the other way, you're just as bad as we are, if not even worse.
They're worse. These people are taking their oath, okay, to, you know, government first and follow these rules and whatever, and they're doing anything possible. They know the law better than anybody else, so they're more aware that they're breaking it. A regular civilian might not know what laws he's breaking half of the time, but when you're an FBI agent, you know the law back and forward. You studied that, okay?
And especially a prosecutor.
Exactly. So prosecutors,
And a judge.
judges, and FBI agents, you know exactly what you're doing wrong. And, you know, it's funny to me because I don't know how these people sleep at night knowing that they're destroying lives. They just look at them like, you know what, they're not good people anyway. And I've heard that from the crooked agent on an Anderson Cooper interview when they asked him, did you know Greg Scarpa was killing people? And he's like, you know, these weren't good people. What makes you the judge? You know, what makes you the judge of who's a good person?
Well, that's acidine. That's acidine.
And there's no crime with who
That's
you hang out
acidine
with,
that an
though.
FBI agent would say, well, they're not good people anyway.
But neither are you, sir.
Exactly.
You are one of the
Neither
most
you, because
corrupt
you're
agents
letting
in the
them,
world.
You're letting them kill people.
You're giving addresses.
You're letting them kill
It's
people,
not even
and you're
letting
supposed
them.
to be
You're aiding and abetting, okay? You're breaking the law. Yep.
aiding and abetting a murder.
Yep. Multiple murders. So this is a double standard. And the thing is, I'm not allowed to talk about that because then they don't want to look at the case at all. They're going to make sure to shut you up. And
But you have to talk about it because it's vital to the case.
That's my biggest frustration.
It's vital to the case.
I know. And we've been shut down for 34 years. And now that it comes to his
So they want to give compassionate to a rat because you got AIDS, right?
10 years they gave him.
Right? They want to be
died.
compassionate to a rat, but they can't be compassionate to somebody who's served how many years now?
34 years.
34 years, 92 years old, with dementia and all
heart
the
failure.
other health problems.
Yes.
In a wheelchair.
Who cannot commit a crime. The man can't even stand up to shower himself. He can't commit a crime. Even his mental, cognitive, capabilities, he couldn't even conjure up a crime if he wanted to.
I think he has served his life already.
He has. There's nothing left. So it's just cruelty at this point.
So if there's any compassion by the government, they should let him out so his family can be with him, I
say it all the time.
To the end.
We're the ones serving his sentence at this point.
Right.
He's not aware. They're not punishing him. He doesn't even know what he's in there for.
And I know what they'll come back from some of these people who are going to say when you just said that. Well, he did this, not us. No, you did do that to him. You did that to him.
Yep.
Because you didn't have to hold back evidence. You didn't have to lie. You didn't have to have your snitches read a script and lie.
And at the end of the day, 19 people were acquitted based on that information, and
How's
so much more.
19 people with the same information get acquitted, but your grandfather...
He never had a chance to present it, ever. Yeah, so, it's...
Talk about corrupt.
It's very frustrating, and it's hard because most time people like us don't get to have a voice because immediately you're put in the box of, well, you're from a family of criminals. You're this, you're that. This is what you deserve. And it's not true. There's justice out there for a reason. And, we have to start, being responsible, whether you're in government or anything like that. There's right and there's wrong. And we have to start doing right by people, including for my grandfather. People only know one side of the story, and that's what the FBI narrative was.
Well, I mean, Trump is pardoning a Honduras president.
Yeah.
Multiple kilos he was in a conspiracy for.
Listen, this new administration
and
has
you know
been...
something? He pardoned him.
Yep.
If he can pardon, and he's not even an American citizen.
Yeah.
He's not even an American citizen. He's pardoned him. Why can't he pardon an American citizen that they withheld evidence on and gave him 4 life sentences?
And you know what? Trump knows how crooked these prosecutors are.
And it's the same evidence that 19 men got off on.
Yeah. So, this is the frustration that I deal with. And, it's funny because, not funny actually at all, I just have a habit of saying that, but the more I dig, the more I find, and the more upsetting it is. But you know what? The harder I'm going to fight, because if it comes to it, and there's even a day that my grandfather's not here anymore, there's a lot of people that are in jail that shouldn't be, and there's a lot of people that are victims of the government and the weaponization of government, and that's wrong. So if I have to continue to be a voice for them, I will. But, my main goal is fighting for my grandfather. This is how I was raised. And, I met a lot of people in my days, and my grandfather is a great person, and the part that I get to see and the stories I hear from other people, the people that actually know him, not these rats that never met him, are how great he was, how good he was to his peers and people, and what he did for community. And it's not the same side, the same picture that the government was able to put out there. And they have so much power.
It's funny you say that, because I was talking about going back to about Fat Tony Salerno. And Fat Tony, they gave him a life sentence too. My lawyer represented him, Tony Cardinelli. There was no win in that case. They had so much evidence against him. But he took the hit. He died in prison. But when he was on the street, he was a good man to a lot of people. A lot of people. The church, he took care of the church big time. Big donations to the church and everything else. But when it came time, when he got in trouble, everybody scattered.
Yeah.
Everybody's scattered. Just because, you know, and when you're, you know, coming from that life, doesn't mean that you're, you know, everything that they say about you is true.
Yeah.
And people need to understand that.
Yeah. Well, the thing about the FBI and their tactics, what they do is they pick a person that's around certain people that fits the narrative. Now they want to take down a certain organization, and a lot of times it's not because of criminal activity that you would think. You know, a lot of times it's just, you know, the government wanting to, you know, get their feather in their cap and take down a certain group of people. So what they like to do is start putting the narrative in the news prior. We know they've done this. Even back in the day, like I said, they'll put in fake news that someone's a rat, and people have gotten killed for it, and they weren't even rats. They've put fake news to incite violence between groups. They've done that with my grandfather. They've done that with a lot of people. They have tactics that they've used all along. It doesn't make it right. You know, you could just pick a person and accuse them of something, and it's not right. It's not right information.
First of all, if you are a law person and you say label someone a rat, and you know he's not,
they know
you're
the consequence.
putting a target on that man's back.
Yep.
A target on that person's back.
They do it all the
You're
time.
You're looking to execute somebody that is not a rat.
They've done it in COINTELPRO. There was a woman that they put a rumor out that she was a rat, wasn't. She got killed. They did that with, you know, another civil rights leader's wife. Same thing. She had a big target on her back. She wasn't killed, but they went after her. You know, it's certain games and tactics and things that they play with people's lives, and it's just not right. You know, when the FBI and the government targets people like this, right? They're committing crimes. They're conspiring to murder. They're doing more racketeering charges than most of the people that they're putting away. They have more blood on their hands than the people that are serving life sentences. It's not right.
I had just got done doing an interview yesterday with a priest who went away to prison. And he went away to prison because they blamed him for an IRA Brinks Depot heist years ago. Mm-hmm. They brought him into the conspiracy. And they found out, he found out too, the inadequacies. They held back evidence. They said this, said that. They said the money that he had in the home was from the money from the Brinks Depot robbery, which it wasn't. None of that money was stolen from there. They went through the serial numbers. So my point is, he likes to say it ain't the FBI, it's the FB lie.
Yeah. But it's true, and that's what they do. And at the end of the day, they put someone like my grandfather away for 3 life sentences, but then you have the crooked FBI agent gets his pension, the rat gets, you know, compassion, and what's left? An elderly man dying in prison. So it's not right. It's not right.
If they're talking about, and didn't the judge have an opinion about saying something about he told your grandfather you're going away for life and whatever.
Yeah, he
and then
made
on the
sure.
other hand, he talks about having compassion.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
So in my grandfather's case, the judge was very adamant on saying that he's giving my grandfather 3 life sentences, blaming him for every crime that was committed during this time, even though their top echelon informant killed 90% of the people that died on the street during this time. They don't want to take responsibility for that.
And that top echelon informant was?
Greg Scarpa. But we did find out years later there was another top echelon informant, Frankie Sparacco, who they whisked away into prison, and he wrote, I have an 11-page letter from him that was sent to lawyers stating that the FBI was aware of murders he committed and were letting other people take the fall for it. They were aware of all of the crimes committed by their top echelon people. They were
that's
giving them
coming from the
addresses.
rat.
This is coming from an additional rat. So I have like 3 different rats.
After the fact.
That ratted on the FBI.
After the fact.
After the fact of the acquittal. So not only do I have new evidence based after my grandfather's trial that acquitted 19 men, I have more evidence after that with new people. And then I have to say too, even the rats that are doing podcasts now give information. I mean, Greg Scarpa's son was on a podcast saying that his father wasn't privy to a lot of the information. So what the FBI would do was lie to the federal judge, go to the judge and say, hey, top echelon informant X said this, we need a wiretap. And they would get granted a wiretap. That's illegal. That's illegal. They're lying to federal judges. So if any of us lie
they
to
have to show some type of evidence to the judge.
No, their top echelon informant said it. So they could sign off saying that the rat said it when he didn't.
So you're telling me, because I always thought you had to have some type of evidence, show some type of evidence.
The FBI agent could go to the judge and say, Greg Scarpa said X. I need a wiretap. And he'll say, granted.
You see where I'm going, right?
Yes.
You see where I'm going with this?
Yes.
You're telling me a judge, a federal judge or a state judge, but we're talking federal, right? The highest judge of the law,
yes,
is going to listen to a rat
that kills people.
That kills people?
Yes. So,
to give a wiretap?
Well, it's the same thing. Yes.
Against somebody?
Yes. And they were getting their wiretaps, okay?
Are you kidding me?
No.
They're going to only because if a rat says this, then they can have a wiretap.
But the rat didn't even say it. That's the most messed up part. So the rat's not even saying it.
This gets even more wild.
They're using the rat's name to now get the wiretap, to now get the, evidence that they need to present a case. So they're doing everything dirty to try to set somebody up. Now they already have this narrative in their head of the story that they have to paint while they're going in there. So they say, okay, great. We're going to send Greg out, give him this address, do this, do that. Greg's out killing people. The men that are on the street are actually thinking that someone's trying to kill them, not realizing it was the FBI and the rats. So, somebody like my grandfather, how this whole thing supposedly started, was he was driving home and saw a bunch of guys that tried to kill him. And it turned out that those guys were part of Greg Scarpa's crew, that he was running the show. It wasn't the narrative they put out that there was this war against each other. They used Greg Scarpa and his crew to create this story so that it could build animosity on the street. So they create these narratives and then...
All guided by the FBI.
All guided by the FBI.
Wow.
Yep. And now you also have special rules. So let's look at this. You have someone like Greg Scarpa that decided he was going to be a top echelon informant. And instead of following the rules where FBI agents have to go in with 2 agents, write a 302, DeVecchio was allowed to meet.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. That's why I was asking you.
Oh, no, there's no 302s. Greg Scarpa was allowed to meet with DeVecchio in private locations without any other agents present. And as a matter of fact, during my father's case...
And they still won't... They won't let this poor guy out.
No.
They won't let this guy out.
They won't even let him present this evidence.
Why won't they let him present the evidence?
They just denied him every chance for a retrial possible. So they're saying...
They're all in bed together, these dirty bastards.
So, it's a team. You go to work every day. You have the same prosecutors that are friends with the FBI, that are friends with the judges, and they want to get these convictions. And if you look at it, if you're facing a life sentence, there's a 99.9% rate that they're going to convict you. That shows you one thing. There's no way that all of these people are guilty and deserve these sentencing. These people are getting unfair trials. Evidence is withheld. There's a lot more to the picture than people see. And unless you've lived it and experienced it, it's hard to believe because you can never think that this would happen. But there's evidence out there.
Yeah, people don't understand. They don't know this.
They just have a bigger voice than, say, you or I. So it's important that we do these type of things because their voice is more powerful. They're going directly to the source, the news source, and people believe what a judge or prosecutor says, unfortunately.
Yeah, because they're supposed to be upholding the law.
Yes, they have more credibility. Meanwhile, they're more crooked than most.
There you go. They're supposed to be upholding the law, but they're breaking the law.
Every law, yes. to get what they want.
So in a top echelon informant status, they can do anything and everything but, they say, but commit murder.
And they still do.
And they still do it.
Both top echelon informants on my grandfather's case were committing
They did it
murders.
with Whitey Bulger, too, and
Yes.
Stevie Fleming.
Well, listen, at the end of the day, we know that they trained together, same playbook. The thing is, the overlap between COINTELPRO, if you look at it, it stopped in 1971, the year that Joe Colombo was shot. Joe Colombo was a civil rights leader, okay? And there's plenty of motive why the FBI would want to take him down, okay? They used people like Greg Scarpa for COINTEL operations against other civil rights leaders, so it makes sense that they would use him for something like this, okay? There's no doubt in my mind that the FBI knows a lot more and why they would keep that evidence sealed. It just so happened that in 71, when that was shut down and the church committee found it to be, a violation of human civil liberties, they shut it down. But guess what they didn't shut down? The program that was overlapping it that they started, which was the top echelon program. Same tactics, same rules, same everything. So why don't they look into that? Why don't they dissect the top echelon program? They really should, because there's a lot, and we could go from John Connolly to DeVecchio to Villano. They all have books out there talking about their corruption. We have Brick Agent. We're going to win this thing. All their books they wrote in ways that they could profit on their corruption, collect their pension, and go on with their lives. It's crazy. Someone needs to dive into that. They should be charged with RICO charges as well, just like the regular civilian. But it doesn't apply to them.
If your grandfather's sitting there, maybe they should be sitting next to him.
I agree.
Right?
I agree, but it'll never happen. But you know what? If they're not going to do that,
your grandfather should be out and
exactly.
they should be sitting there.
That's
your
true.
Your grandfather should be out and they should be sitting there.
That is true. But at the end of the day, if they're not going to give him the fair trial and they're not going to prosecute the dirty government leaders, then they should at least let him out, or let his trial be heard, or at least grant him a compassionate release after all this time. Because he did serve his time and he did serve a life sentence.
Yeah, where's the compassion? Like I said, that judge said, I'm going to give you all this. And then at one point, he's saying, talking about compassionate.
He was quoted, saying about Greg Scarpa that we should show humanity.
So he's got compassion for a rat that was used as a hitman for the FBI.
Yeah. Yes.
And lied.
Yes.
But he doesn't have compassion for the guy that he lied against.
Of course, he has compassion for him because he got him great convictions, and
yeah, but he doesn't have he doesn't have compassion. I'm talking about the judge. That judge should have compassion for your grandfather seeing all this evidence that couldn't be put in because they denied.
Yep. Well, it goes even further, because now that judge has passed away, and the new judges that look at the file, and they're quoting the same judge and his harsh words without looking at the new evidence, and that's not fair. So
no, it's not fair. They need to open their eyes. They need to delve into it a little more, because this is corruption.
It is. And, this is part of my frustration, and this is why, hopefully, I don't know. I keep doing these podcasts. It's a very limited space for me because not everyone can talk on these topics. But it's important that if people can help, or they know how to even reach the right people, that they want to hear more of the story. I have all the evidence. It's not like
I think the Trump administration, who's exonerating people and pardoning them, I think they should take a look into your grandfather and say, hey, listen, we just heard something. We didn't know that that it was that corrupt, what the FBI was doing, and that these prosecutors, especially the same prosecutor that came after me, that dirty bastard, right?
Yep.
So that said, let's take a look at this.
Yeah. Trying to get it out there.
Right? Let's take a look at it. Let the Trump administration take a look at it and say, you know what? We see that there is corruption. How's 19 people get off with the same evidence? Same stinking evidence.
That was withheld.
That was withheld.
How do you not give somebody that evidence?
So why is this man still sitting there, rotting away in prison? He should be home with you and your family.
I agree. So that's the mission. So that's why I'm here. That's what I'm
I'll
trying
tell
to
ya.
do.
If anybody has the power, and he's the only one, is Trump. I hope that Trump and the administration hears this, sees this, delves into it, and says, you know what? His granddaughter, she's right. She's absolutely right. I'm pardoning this guy. I want him to go home and finish his days with his family.
Yeah. That's all I could hope for, So that's why now I think the push is harder for me too. There's a lot of talks about, cleaning up the government. They talk about draining the swamp and all of this stuff. So I'm very hopeful that this administration is going to dive deeper into this. And again, that's all that I could hope for. And that's what I'm praying for. And I'm moving forward with any way that I can. And, that's why I appreciate your platform. I appreciate you listening. It's hard because a lot of people try to, combat everything that you have to say because they don't come from that space and they don't understand it. So being that you've lived it, it does create a different kind of, support for me, and it makes it easier.
Well, I do know how they hold back evidence. I do know that. I do know how they make up stories and say things. And I scratch my head. And when I was going to trial or awaiting trial, I'd scratch my head and say, that ain't true. This isn't true. So now you have to fight every single thing like that.
And they don't even let you bring half the
And they
evidence
don't even
into
let
the
you do
courtroom.
it.
They withhold a lot of stuff, and it's hard. But that's the space that we live in. This is our country. This is our justice system, and it's corrupt, and it needs to be cleaned up.
Yeah, I mean it's brutal, and the people don't understand what's happening. And let me just say one thing. If it, let's say it had nothing to do with crime, but it was a case, for instance, let's go years back. The bombing in the Olympic Center in Atlanta, right? Mm-hmm. Here's this poor guy that they said did it. They would bring everything they can against him. Mm-hmm. This poor guy. Oh, they got the guy. They got him here. Here he is. It wasn't him. But they went at it so hard, and they would say anything to get a conviction for the public.
Yep. This is the world we live in. People don't realize, like I said, until they see a story like that or it happens to them. So a lot of people don't feel the compassion. They put you in that box. They, label you based on what the media put out about your family. And that's the hardest part about it. So when you hear stories like that and you live it, great, but people need to open their eyes to that. People just walk around thinking like, well, the government's not going to lie to us. The judge isn't going to lie. Prosecutors aren't going to lie. There must be evidence if they gave this guy life.
I wonder how many citizens, if you will, how many innocent people, if you will, that were never, in that life, that these rats that they had actually executed. I bet there's a few.
Yeah, quite a few.
Right? Mm-hmm. People who never been in that type of life because maybe they pissed them off somehow. Maybe there was a driving down the street and cut them off. Who knows?
Yeah. You don't know.
Right?
But you know what they're capable of.
I guarantee you, I bet there were innocent people that they took out. And the FBI knew about it and let it go.
Yeah. Listen, you have situations even on my grandfather's case where they said during that time, Greg Scarpa was pulled over by regular law enforcement because he threw a gun out the window. And he made a call to his FBI handler, and that went away. So where's the gun charge? Where they could have stopped him from killing dozens of people a bunch of times, and they never did. They knew that, they also gave him evidence when people were going to get arrested. They told him who was a rat. People got killed because of the information the government gave.
They did the same thing with Whitey Bulger. They told they did the same exact playbook.
Yeah, it is.
Same exact playbook of Whitey Bulger and Stevie Flynn.
So that's why you can't say it's a coincidence that these things happen. There's no way that these agents were together in New York.
It's the same playbook. Studied
in Quantico together. This is under, we know that the playbook was there from their other things that they got caught on, even the COINTEL. They were never going to let us know about that. It was a group of activists that broke into the FBI headquarters in Pennsylvania, pulled out the files, found that they said COINTELPRO, and saw that they were blackmailing, bribing, doing all of this stuff. And then the church committee had to look into it. That's how they found out. Who's going to dive into the top echelon program? Who's going to dive in and look at it? Because that needs to be done.
Right.
That needs to be done. For the sake of justice and humanity and just living in a country that's supposed to be fair and just, they need to dive into that. And things need to happen because it's not right and it's not legal.
And what gets me after all this corruption and letting these rats do whatever they want, because they're lying for them, they're doing their dirty work for them, they're creating wars for them so they can justify their job. We'll start this war so we can try to take these guys down, and we'll do this. That's not justice. That's not upholding the law.
That's creating chaos. You're creating
violence.
That's creating
You're creating
chaos.
Violence.
Yes.
You're creating crimes.
Yep.
You are creating crimes.
And that's when people are getting hurt. That's when things are happening. You have your own players that you're aware of committing murders. The FBI agent gave an address to find somebody and kill them. Okay? You have another rat on a podcast recently saying, we were told at 3 a.m. this guy leaves his house every morning. What happened to that guy? He got killed because the FBI gave evidence of where he was, what time he left the house, to a serial killer. Okay? And then they want to say that somebody like my grandfather is responsible for all of the crimes that happened during this time. How is that even possible?
Meanwhile, they're the ones who created it.
Yes. They say things like, well, this is what it is. If he was the acting boss, which is bullshit.
So they use your grandfather basically as a scapegoat.
They used him as, the story was that he wanted to, get power. No, the story was he went home and someone tried to kill him and they worked for the FBI. That's what happened.
If someone tried to kill him who was a rat.
Somebody who was a rat, top echelon informant, tried to kill him. And they would have covered that up forever, too, if it didn't get exposed during the next case. If he didn't get sick with AIDS and get caught with a gun, and then while he was on probation, shot somebody, okay, and ended up having to go in the hospital because he got shot, they would have never looked into that. He wouldn't have had to go in front of a judge. Nobody would have pulled the minutes and found out that they only gave him a certain amount of time. They kept brushing it off. Why was he not going to jail? And that's how he was exposed. So they would have covered that up forever and let my grandfather rot. They would have let my father rot for 3 life sentences as well.
Thank God he got off.
Thank God.
With the same evidence.
Yes, with the same evidence. He did serve time because he didn't know all of this and he had to take a plea before because he knew that they were trying to crucify him. My grandfather just got sentenced. He knew what they were doing to him. So he ended up serving 10 years, but he was facing life, just like my grandfather. And when that acquittal came and that evidence came, it was such a relief. But it wasn't over, I still didn't have my father until I was 19, and then they banished him for the state of New York for another 11 years. So I never lived with my father again. And all this while, they were trying to fight to get my grandfather out.
So they said they banished him, saying he couldn't come back to New York.
He couldn't come back to New York.
That was one of the stipulations.
Yes. And then, another thing that's funny to bring up, when he did have that plea, they promised to keep him in like the Northeastern District because he had 5 kids and that was part of the agreement. They shipped him to Leavenworth, Kansas.
They don't do that. That's all baloney. That's all bullshit.
No, but you know what they do? When I read the letters from Sparaco to the government, he's a rat. He wanted to serve, he was willing to serve 20 years for them to never find out that he was a rat. He didn't care as long as they didn't know he was a rat. He got to pick which prison he was in. Greg Scarpa, because he was sick, they kept him local in the prison he wanted to be in. They accommodate rats.
Oh, I know.
But they won't do it for a man. Now, you're in jail, okay? It doesn't matter if you're in a prison next to your house. You're still in prison. You're not going anywhere. You're not a free man. But the children who have anxiety, that can't get on a plane, that can't, say, afford to go see him, whatever, because there's 5 children and, get out of school. And I couldn't even hop on a plane because I had severe anxiety.
Well, they have the hardship.
That's when they
paperwork.
say, you know what, we're shipping this guy far away as possible. So it goes to show you who they have compassion for. It's the murderers that are giving them
the murdering rats.
The notch, the murdering rats that give them the notch on their belt that they can do favors for. And that's what's not right either. So there's a lot to unravel here. So yeah, we have a pretty fair government, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sarcasm.
Yeah, exactly. But I just want to say this. These other podcasts, they bring these rats on, and they're hugging them, and they're praising them, and they're glorifying rats.
Yeah, for what?
They're glorifying these other platforms, all these other platforms, other than Joey Molino.
Yeah.
They're glorifying rats.
Yeah. And, make it make sense because...
Oh, great guy, big mobster, big this, big that. He's a rat.
But not only that, they are not even telling the truth about themselves. Do you know how many times...
I get that. I keep telling these people, I say, stop listening to the rats because they're not telling you the full truth.
No, they're not telling
they're
the
not.
truth. And a lot
they're
of
going to make themselves look like they're the best thing ever.
And even when they don't, okay, they were not privy to most of the information they're talking about.
Right.
They weren't around most of the people that they speak of. You're one man doing a podcast. You have this knowledge about every man that walked the earth. You know what I'm saying? Would you, read a little bit about what the FBI says about him, and that's where your story comes from? There is no possible way these people have been around all of these people and have all these stories and know the insight, because the truth of the matter is anybody that was really involved in that life is not telling a story for these people to even know. So it's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. And if you're the idiot that's like eating popcorn, watching it going, wow, this guy is something else. I mean, I feel sorry for you.
I'm going to tell you something. This is why I started my podcast, because I'm tired of the rats. I'm tired of the shenanigans. I'm tired of the government catering to the rats and the shenanigans that are going on like this.
Yeah.
I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. This is why I started my program.
Well, I love it. And I think...
And you know what? It's about time that we really have, the other side. Because it's always one-sided. It's always the rats, the rats, the rats. Well, guess what? Now you got a guy who walked the walk, that knows the insides, that knows the deals that have gone on, and is bringing it to light.
I love it. I'm here for it.
And I love you for coming on for it, because I want your grandfather out. He deserves to be out.
Thank you.
Especially after them holding that evidence back, and then later on having that evidence be released, and those 19 people being acquitted because of the corruption.
Yeah. I mean, basically what the prosecutors and the FBI agents do with these rats is it's bribery. If their, testimony, receives a shorter sentence and there's an incentive, that's a transaction. That's not justice. That's not them doing the right thing. That's them helping themselves. And they're willing to sacrifice anybody to help themselves.
Sure.
So, these people are being glorified, but they're actually probably the worst people on the planet, because not only are they lying, they're doing it to save themselves, knowing that they're the biggest piece of shits out there. Okay? Knowing they're committing the worst crimes, and knowing that they would have kept going had they not gotten this opportunity. And a lot of them do fuck up again. And what does the government do? Cover up for them.
Oh, no, they just call their handler, like you
Yes.
said, and the handler comes down and takes care of it for them.
Yes. They call their old prosecutor. They call their old
sweep
handler.
it right under the rug.
Exactly. You have situations where, there was the other rat was talking about a shootout that he had, and they ended up in the hospital, and the FBI came in and snuck him out a back door so that he didn't get in trouble for shooting somebody. I mean, What planet do we live on? When is that okay? You're worried about stopping violence when you're the reason there's violence, and then you're okaying it, and then you're sneaking them out a back door.
It's amazing how the New York and Boston, how it went down. And I mean, in Boston, my lawyer, Tony Cardinelli, was the guy who broke it open about the informants. There were hundreds of them. Hundreds.
And how is that right, too? How do you have top echelon informants where you get to protect their identity forever, right? How do you have a fair trial when you're not even allowed to defend yourself and say, I've never met this guy. This is not the truth. Let me expose what he's doing or saying. How is that fair that we could have a program like this? How do you have someone that could hide their identity, say whatever the hell they want, never get exposed? You should have to stand up and say what you feel face to face like a man if that's what you choose to do.
I get a kick out of this. If you ask one of these rats on the stand on a cross-examination, are you a liar? And they say, and I've heard this, yes, I'm a liar, but I've been lying all my life.
Half of them they won't even put on the stand.
And yet, so you're going to listen, that he should be thrown off the stand immediately.
But you know what?
Throw him off the stand, get him off the stand, get him out of here.
You're saying you're a liar.
You're saying you're a liar,
everything
and
you
you're
say
saying
has
you
to be
lied all your
considered
life.
Exactly. But they don't do that. And half the time they'll take a 302 from a rat, use it in court, but never put them on the stand because they know once they're cross-examined that they're going to be out the door. So the FBI is very careful what they do, and the prosecutors.
Brutal. Mm-hmm. Crazy.
It is. So
it's so corrupt. It's crazy. And they call guys like me, or your grandfather, your father, whoever, the criminals.
Yeah. I know.
We're nothing compared to that.
I know.
We're nothing compared to these people.
Not even
close.
Yep. So it's not even like a scratch on the surface of the things that they're involved in. And, you know, they get to paint the picture. That's the hard part. They get to paint the picture of who you are, who my family is, and we don't even get to defend ourselves half the time. So, you know, but, you know, again, I'm hoping that the truth comes to light. That's why we're here. That's why we're talking about it. Maybe there's some other people with more stories to come forward.
The Trump administration needs to look into this.
Yeah.
They need to look into this case, see the inadequacies, see the corruption, and have your father pardoned immediately because he served enough time already.
Yeah.
In this cruel and unusual punishment.
Yeah. That's what it is. I mean, it's elderly abuse at this point. You know, it's abuse for the incarcerated person. It's abuse even on the prison system. You have, you know, medical staff that can't handle the workload. You know, there's court documents from the BOP even stating that they're understaffed and that it's overwhelming for...
Yeah, you're not getting any type of good medical facility, medical...
Not with the ratio of one doctor per 987 inmates.
Where do they get these doctors from?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, where do they get their degrees from?
Even if they had the best doctor in the world, there is not one hospital in the country that could have one doctor per 987 people.
There's no way you can
It's like
handle
one
that.
doctor per 5 patients or one nurse per 3 on a floor. So you're telling me that we have this ratio, crazy ratio, in a prison system.
I'm going to tell you one thing, though. A lot of these doctors inside prison, they were a cop before they were a doctor. I can tell you that. I've been in that situation.
Yeah.
I've been in a situation. I went to the dentist. Oh, you missed a day. You were supposed to be here, so get out of my chair because I missed an appointment. I said, excuse me, but I was in lockdown because I had an altercation and I just beat the shit out of somebody and I was in lockdown for over a month. Now I'm out, so I'm here. Says, I don't care. Get out of my chair. She said, otherwise I'm pressing the alarm, the deuces.
Oh, my God.
I said, are you kidding me, right? You're a cop before you're a medical person.
This is
and
how
the
they
same
treat
thing
people.
with not just the dentist, but the other people too. The physicians, assistants, and everything else that they have.
Yeah.
They're cops before They're humanitarian people.
When I called my grandfather, I didn't hear from him for a couple of weeks, and I kept calling the prison and just saying, I'm doing a wellness check. Sorry, we can't give you any information. I keep calling back. Finally, I get this one officer on the phone, and he tells me, sweetheart, you know that he's a prisoner, right? So I said, yeah. Well, we can't tell you anything. He's incarcerated. So, I go, okay, so he's not a human first. We're not going to talk about his medical care. I'm his health proxy. You're not going to give me information. I could reveal my identity. I just say he's okay. You can't do that? I said, I hope your mother never gets dementia. I hope you're never in a position where you're worried about someone that you love. These people act like they don't have family or a heart or a soul.
But they train these people in the prison system. They train them to be a cop before anything else. Now,
but you know what? Even as a cop, have a heart. Be a half a human. You don't have family members.
No.
You don't know what it's like to be nice to another human.
They train them to do that. That's the protocol.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you something. When I was in Milan, Michigan, Detroit, outside of Detroit, I was in the yard one day and I was training, hitting a heavy bag because I was a boxer. And I see the bus through the fences, the barbed wire fences. And I see the bus pull up with other new inmates coming in. And they were coming all shackled, and I look, and I'm saying, oh, they got new meat coming in or whatever, I mean. And I look again. I go, hold on, wait a minute. Is that the priest? Is that? No way. I said, no way. It was the priest, a Catholic priest from that prison, that was in that prison, holding a shotgun.
What?
Because they needed an extra man.
Oh my gosh.
I kid you fucking not. I seen this with my own eyes.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
And I told my priest friend this too.
What did he say? He never had to hold a shotgun?
He said it's totally against the law to do that. Against the laws of the Catholic Church. I said,
God.
I said, I wish they saw him because that son of a gun was whole. I couldn't believe it.
Rambo.
He was Father Rambo, exactly. I never talked to that son of a bitch anyway.
That's crazy.
I wouldn't even say hello to that piece of shit after that. And normally, if I see a priest with the collar, I'd say, hello, Father, how are you?
Of course.
Being a Catholic. But that piece of shit, I respect the collar, but I don't respect the man.
Yeah, no, it's God that you're looking at. The people that fall, there's good and bad in all.
I couldn't believe that though. A priest fucking holding the shotgun while the other inmates were coming out because they needed another guy out there.
That's wild. Is he even trained to do that?
Wow, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They teach him this, to be a cop first. I don't care where you're working. They teach him to be a cop first.
Yeah.
Whether it's in the medical field inside or the religious field.
Yeah. I'm sure
That's how fucked up this shit is. People don't realize that. They don't realize how fucked up it really is.
I know.
Now, the thing is, try to stay out of this so you don't have to experience that, right?
Of course.
But you're supposed to show some type of, follow laws and stuff like that we have, right? Because they were sworn in to do that. And they're breaking laws every which way.
Yeah. Whether
it's out in the street here or in jail.
Yeah, I mean, you see it all the time. They get in trouble for things that they're doing behind bars, It's funny, though, that you brought it up because there was actually one woman that reached out to me on Facebook after seeing me on a podcast. And she said she worked at the BOP and she helped move my grandfather when he was moving from one location to another. And she wanted to buy a sweatshirt. And I was shocked by it because I'm like, oh my God, there's actually somebody that worked there that has a heart, that has compassion, and actually, saw him as a human and is now walking around wearing his sweatshirt. So there's one person I know of that had a heart there.
Yeah, well, good for her.
Yeah.
But it's fucked up because I remember when I was I'm seeing all these guys, they get down to a certain level in their time and they let them go to camps. Mm-hmm. I'm like, my time's a little low.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, my time's a little low. I don't got many years to go left, right?
Yeah.
You think I could go to a camp? Right? Oh, yeah, we'll try, Mr. Shea. And come back, oh, Mr. Shea, there's no way you can ever go to a camp. Why? Why? Oh, it's in your file. We cannot tell you why. So they got evidence in that file I'll never know about.
Yeah, why can't you see your own file?
Because that file is probably written by a rat FBI agent, a rat prosecutor, and all information coming from a stinking lying rat. That's why.
Yeah,
that's why.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, as a human, if you have a file and you have a right to fight for your own justice, shouldn't you know what's in your file?
I wasn't meant to go to a camp anyway. My mentality wasn't camp mentality anyway.
Day camp guy?
Yeah, I mean, I would have been out of that. They would have been putting me back in anyway because I didn't take any shit from anybody.
Okay, you weren't going to be basket weaving with the group or anything.
Yeah,
like that?
no.
Crocheting, none of that.
No,
okay.
no.
I didn't think so.
Though I did take up making jewelry, and I'll tell you why. Italian guy got me involved in it from New York. And he kept at it all the time. And I used to buy things off him. I say, hey, can you make a bracelet with the beads? And I'd send it home to my friends, kids and stuff, and women, and make earrings,
Yeah.
And some of the stuff was really nice, at least I thought it was.
Yeah.
So he goes, why don't you join the class? I'll show you, John. I ain't doing that. I'm too macho to do that. So one day I said, fuck it. I says, I'll try it. So I went and I tried it. I fucking end up liking it. I was sitting in my own room in my cell just doing it by myself. You gotta do
something to pass the time, right?
Well, it was one of the things, of many. And then, so I'd send the stuff home. I think I still have some of my stuff somewhere in the plastic bags, that I have saved just to have it for memorabilia, if you will. But yeah, I mean,
I have my collection of stuff too. I have like a little bracelet with my name on it that was made out of like a milk carton strap thing, and it's all like fabric over it. I have that. I have a leather bag that my grandfather set with my initials on it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know where these people come up with these skills,
well,
it's impressive.
The leather bag
it's 30 years old.
the leather bag, they were making, they had a leather shop, and you could buy the leather, the inmate could buy the leather, and you could make different things in the leather shop there.
Okay.
And then you'd have to send it home, of course.
Okay.
So I had, or they would let you, if you lifted weights, when they had weights at the time.
Yeah.
You could make a leather weight belt and use it in the gym. And you could put anything you wanted on that leather belt, whatever. It could be Italian flag if you're Italian, or Irish, whatever, boxing gloves, whatever it might be.
Did you have a belt?
I did. I didn't like it.
What'd you have on yours?
I had boxing gloves. I think I had a shamrock, and I think I had fuck rats. But
that's a good one. That's my favorite belt, probably. I'd get the same one.
So we really have to get your grandfather out. And if there's any viewers out there that could help, how can they help be advocates to do that?
Well, I think the ultimate goal for me, I think that being that President Trump dealt with the same prosecutors, I think getting to him, I think he would have compassion, being that my grandfather had so much evidence withheld on the case, and also with his age and his condition. He seems like he's a compassionate man. I see that he's letting other people off. I think just getting to Trump and getting the word out there, if I had the opportunity for him to hear or even look at the case, I think that would be huge. So if there's any way that anyone thinks I could get to him or get the word out to him, I think that would be my best bet, and probably my only bet.
I'm sure there are people out there that could get to him. I'm sure his own people, if they just watched his program, could whisper in his ear and say, hey, listen, we just seen something that's really interesting, and I think you would, people would love you for doing something like that, because you would show how compassionate you really are.
Yeah, and I think
and
for
especially because it was a stinking rat prosecutor that went after you.
Yeah. I think based on all the corruption that he finally saw himself, not that I wish that on anybody, but as it was happening, I was like, oh my God, he's going to get it. You know, he's going to see what people like us go through. And I'm very hopeful that it could get to him and that he could take a look. Because I also see him as a grandfather, maybe having compassion, looking at me as like one of his granddaughters and seeing what he went through. So I'm very hopeful to get through to him.
If they can have compassion for the rats, they can have compassion for a 92-year-old man that actually was a stand-up man and is a stand-up man.
Thank you. I agree.
What's your life today knowing you're trying to get your grandfather out? How's that feel for you today?
I think for me, I went the route of like starting my own business and doing everything, and I kind of put everything on the back burner to pursue this. This is my number one mission right now. So even my own business, my personal life kind of took the back seat for a minute. I'm very passionate about working on this because I feel like I'm very limited on time, being with his health, his age, and his condition he's in now. So I'm fully focused on this. You know, I dream about his case. I wake up to like thoughts of, oh, I could do this, or I should call this one, or I should do this. So it's definitely consuming me right now, and I'm okay with that because this is just what my calling is right now.
Fantastic. You know, if you've seen a lot, you've been through a lot with your family. You've seen a lot of hurt. You know, they say you can't really give advice to people unless you go through it yourself. So you've been through some of that. And you've never, you know, you're just an advocate for your family, which is fantastic. If there was any advice that you could give somebody in life, what would that be?
I think that you should always be proud of where you come from. I think that you should always fight for what you feel is right, even if other people don't agree with you. I think that if you have loved ones that are incarcerated, never turn your back on them and fight for them because they need you. They're stuck on the outside. Being a voice for other people is something that I strongly encourage. So if you don't have it, lean on other people, but never give up. My advice would definitely be never give up.
Fantastic. Jackie, we're going to try everything we can to get to the right people.
Thank you.
To get him free. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for
and
having me.
please give him a hug for me.
I will.